In 2005, I received a grant from the Asia Art Archive. It was a Martel Contemporary Asian Art Research Grant, and it was called Mediating the Mekong. And I was looking at contemporary art production in each of the sub-Mekong nations, which is Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and Myanmar. And looking at how two factors, mainly the economic state of the nation versus the state of civil society in each of the countries impacted contemporary art production. And it was a one-year research project which culminated in a report that was delivered in 2006 to the Asia Art Archive. From that point on, I continued my own practice, arts practice, and Russell and I met in 2006, and I believe I had given you the paper, and that became the seed of a dialogue between Russell and I about the Mekong region. And a lot's happened since that time. At that time, for example, Thailand seemed to be the model for many of the nations of where we wanted to go, as far as, sorry a minute, as far as, a solid infrastructure, a stable government, and some investment into the culture sector. And we know from 2005 much has changed in Thailand. During that period, we could look at Myanmar and look to its neighbor in Thailand and make comparisons, where in just a couple of years ago, Thailand had a military government. So it gave us a chance to refresh ourselves with the current state of the nations and looking at the artist again. So from that initial research, I had met a lot of artists and developed relationships with the artists and organizations in the Mekong. And the second time around, Russell and I were able to revisit many of these spaces and artists and to develop some new ideas for the exhibition.
And there's a number of themes that I guess we were sort of interested in looking at that really came out of Rich's research. I guess really reflecting aspects of daily life, artists really responding to their environment, aspects of political situations or conditions, very strong tradition, Buddhist tradition, and the impact of globalization and economic development, and the tensions between the tradition and the sort of modernity. So they flow through a lot of the works, and the way artists use their own local traditions in producing contemporary art, from the vases that Khan has produced to working with rattan and bamboo in Sopip's work. But it's not intended, I suppose, to be a didactic show, and the idea of the Mekong as a motif was very important, and that was something that Rich had in his paper as well, using it as a metaphor for flows of information, flows of influence, from China and India over the centuries, histories of colonialism, flows of economies, and the river being a connector, but also a divider. It's a very rapid river. It sort of reverses in some parts. It floods. It's a very volatile river. So it's a fascinating sort of metaphor, I think, in terms of thinking about the contesting cultures and histories of the region, which are incredibly rich and incredibly layered. We might start talking with the artists, which I'm sure you're all here to hear. So we might start with Manit Sri Waningpum, and the work of Manit's is along this wall, a series of black and white photos called Waiting for the King.
Any question? Actually, today is a Thailand King birthday. So, I think it's been probably a couple of months as the king, he was in the hospital, and away from the public. So today he gonna, after some time, he gonna be seen by the public, to confirm that he's still alive. Because I think as we say that Thailand is a sample, I mean, a model in of the Mekong region. I think I'm surprised. As you learn that since 2006, Thailand got a coup d'etat, which is nobody expected. I mean, since the last coup d'etat in 92, in 91, and everybody thinks it's Thailand democracy had developed in the level that the coup d'etat, I mean, not going to happen again. But finally, between the public, I mean the Thai people, decide whether they're going to stand up to fight against the army for the democracy, or to side with the, they call, elected Prime Minister, Thaksin Shinawatra. But it seems that people are so afraid Thaksin Shinawatra than the army. So people stand by the army. So they accept the coup d'etat. So you imagine that how Thaksin, and compared to the army, why, I mean, people chose the army. So something must be wrong, right? I think this is something, is a big question, whether and democracy can produce a great leader, or something that we can produce a politician that people can trust, can rely on. Yeah, this is. I think when I say this, probably the scholar might say, no way. You have to side with the democracy. It means that you have to, no matter, I mean, you get the worst leader, like we experienced, like Hitler, also came from, also that's a product of democracy, you know. But because this is, I talk in the Thai context, so sometimes I think many political science have to throw away the textbook, try to analyze what is all about, why people, I mean, chose the army rather than the, I mean, elected prime minister. That is something that happened in Thailand. So, as you know, might learn from the news that what happened in last month, yeah, between Thai and the Cambodian conflict, yeah. So, you see, it's quite interesting that we never had politicians who have such a huge money that you can't imagine that where the money come from, and how these people can make a lot of money and rip off everything from their own country. And this is, I think, it's still challenging to everyone, probably in this room, that you have to find out how the system that the smart people can work out and take everything for themselves.